All right. Hello, everyone who is joining us. Good morning or afternoon or evening. I see we've got somebody from Paris here. Welcome to the sales meditation event. We are so excited to have you, and thank you guys so much for joining. So as you can see, Aircall has put on this event with our partners at Front, Gong, and Journey Meditation. My name is Autumn Carter, and I manage strategic partnerships here at Aircall. We are joined by some lovely panelists from here at Aircall and those other two partners I just mentioned, and they will be introducing themselves in just a brief moment. But really glad that you all joined us today, and hopefully this will be the most mindful and restful hour of your week so far. So just to kick us off here and give you a little bit of context into why this event is even happening, what our thoughts behind it were. We know that you, whether you're a sales leader, whether you're a salesperson, whether you're not in the sales organization at all, if you're having communication with end clients or customers or prospects, then we know that you are, dealing with a lot from day to day, right? You're having conversations, you're trying to make sure that those conversations are meaningful, and it's really easy to kind of miss things as you go throughout the day, especially as days drag on, as a lot of us are working remotely or working from home right now. So because of all of that, we thought that we would put on an event that would kind of put the focus back on mindfulness, back on listening, and back on making sure that you make the most of each and every interaction that you have with a customer or prospect. And it'll lead to more mindful sales in particular in this instance. So, and just to give you a sense of the organizations that we have here today, we like to think of the Aircall, Front, and Gong products as helping you to enable a more mindful and virtuous customer lifecycle through what our platforms do. So just to give you a bit of context as to what our products do, Aircall is a 100% cloud-based phone solution. We're a voice solution that integrates really closely with a lot of tools such as Front. And Front is actually a customer communication platform that will manage every single form or channel of interaction that you might have with your customers or prospects, be it chat, be it email, be it social media. Front will help you to manage it and have all of that context and information in one clear, easy to use view. And finally, Gong is a revenue intelligence platform that enables your sales team to make sure that you have the context coming out of every call. It provides meaningful analytics and insights into the calls that you've had. And we actually use Gong internally here at Aircall. It's a huge lifesaver in terms of really being able to kind of analyze each and every sales call, demo, discovery call, cold call that is happening throughout our organization, and makes them really easy to review. So that's kind of what each of our products do, and as they work in conjunction with one another and integrate together, we see that with a lot of our customers, they are creating that mindful and more virtuous customer life cycle. But the reason you all are here today is not to talk about our products. It is to talk to these lovely panelists who are going to be chatting about sales and discovery and a lot of the things that I mentioned before around mindfulness, listening more effectively, and really enabling you to make the most of each and every customer interaction that you have. So with that, I will stop sharing my screen here, and I will let these folks go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Hello,
okay?
everyone.
Yeah,
Yep.
Chip, want to go first?
Yeah, I can start off. Hello, everybody. It's I see there's 54 people here, and that's honestly incredible. I'm sending the best possible vibrations to each of you. My name is Chip Grossman. I'm a customer success manager at Gong.io, and I've been in sales for 4 years. I'm from Virginia. That's where I got my master's degree in business, and I've been practicing mindfulness for 8 years in a variety of different forms, and it's really like what I lean on the most in my job on a day-to-day. So looking forward to talking more about that with you. I'll pass it over to Matthew O.
Awesome, thanks, Chip. Yeah, super excited about the discussion and the meditation today. My name is Matt Osit, and I'm currently the SDR manager at Aircall for North America. Pretty much my entire family are psychologists, so I try or incorporate psychology and being mindful in sales and your day-to-day as much as possible. So super important.
Hey everybody, my name is Matt Klassen. I work in marketing at Front. I've got a long history of content marketing at Front and at my previous company, Gainsight. And just talk specifically about kind of what Front does in just one sentence. It helps teams build relationships with customers over the one medium that every company uses, which is email. And I've been practicing mindfulness for about 3 years now. I was first introduced to it through Headspace, who was a partner of my last company. And I kind of see mindfulness as part of this new way of thinking about work that's almost a correction away from the hustle culture that has permeated the modern workplace in the last like 10 to 20, 30 years. And so that's what I really love about mindfulness and meditation and specifically.
Awesome. Very cool. Thank you guys for sharing your roles and a little bit about your relationship with mindfulness at a high level. Just to kick us off, I mean, what does a mindful, quote unquote, mindful interaction kind of look like to each of you? Matt Klassen, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think actually it's really helpful to start kind of before we get to what a mindful interaction is with what a mindful interaction is not. And especially in modern sales culture and modern marketing, you know, we've always thought that standardization is sort of the key to scale. We want to track every behavior that we're doing. We want to track every interaction. We want to categorize it down to the smallest element, and then growth hack every possible part of it. And I think that's like the results sort of speak for themselves in that sense. But you know, it also has kind of gotten us away from sort of what a human interaction is supposed to be. And so this standardization element, when we think about our conversations and our interactions with customers or with our coworkers, you know, we want to use playbooks. We want to have schedules. We want to A/B test what we're talking about. We have scripts. We have battle cards. And I don't want to discount like the effectiveness of that, but I think I'm not the only person that has uncomfortable feelings about that. So mindfulness to me and having mindful interactions isn't about being unprepared. Isn't about not doing the homework. It's about preparing yourself and preparing your mind, sort of be unprepared, to be adaptable, to be ready for whatever direction that the person you're talking to wants to go in a conversation, and to be willing to go along with it. It means you know, getting ready to be flexible, and so it's a crucial part of your preparation in some ways. But when you actually get into that interaction, it's about being more free flowing with it. It's about, you know, being able to react and you know, react again.
Definitely. Chip, what do you think? What about you in terms of a mindful interaction? What does that kind of look like in your world, or how do you like to think about it?
How do I like to think about it? First, I think Matt made a really great point, which is that mindfulness kind of has this reputation of being kind of an esoteric, airy-fairy kind of thing, but it's really not. It's really about being present. And when you're actually present with someone, you can be highly adaptable. And the salespeople that are the best salespeople are the people who catch every single piece of information. And sometimes it's that last word that someone said that if you actually heard it, it's the game changer. But a lot of people were already thinking about what they were going to say in response. So mindfulness is the ability to stay present throughout the course of the conversation. And as I was thinking about what it means to actually have a mindful conversation, I really had 3 kind of takeaways that I think define a mindful conversation. And first, it's kind of the qualities that you bring to the conversation. It means being intentional about the conversation. So like, you know, why you're there and making it very being empathetic. So you're actually trying to understand what it feels like to be sitting in the seat of the person who's on the other side of the Zoom call from you, or the Aircall, and open-minded. So you're actually not fixed in your ways. You're actually in a collaborative headspace, which is very different than a lot of times you're focused on what you want. Second, it's actually having awareness of yourself first and foremost. What is the emotional state that I'm experiencing right now? Emotions have a huge impact on our behavior. So being aware of the emotional state that you're in is crucial, and as well as being aware of the emotional state of the other person. And if anybody's listened to Chris Voss, former FBI negotiator, labeling someone else's state is one of the best ways to connect with someone and build trust. And so third would be actually that point that Matthew made, which was the adaptability, the ability to actually cater the delivery of your message based on the capability of others. So if you're talking to someone who's scrambled right now and they got crazy things going on in their brain, that's a different value proposition delivery than the person who's chilling, they got time, and you got the full hour. It's like you got to be adaptable. And yeah, so I'll pass it over to Matthew O. That.
Yeah, totally. I think really what it comes down to is being thoughtful. Just to kind of summarize, Matt's point, Chip's point, it's really important to be thoughtful, and that's the first thing that comes to mind. So what do they care about? Why do they care about it? what are they going through while working remote? How has their industry been affected by the pandemic and COVID and all the different changes in our economy right now? It's really super important to be thoughtful, ensure that you're active listening and picking up on tone, what they're saying and why they're saying, and don't ever take things as surface level. Like, always dive a little deeper and don't be afraid to ask a layering question or two. And then the second piece to mindful interactions is actually not the interaction itself. It's what are you doing to prepare for your day or prepare for whatever task you have at hand. So are you going for walks? Are you taking deep breathing? Are you doing deep breathing exercises? Are you doing enough research? Are you premeditating your day and visioning your success for that day or that week or month, whatever the case might be? So really great points by Matt and Chip, and I think it's just really important to be thoughtful and both about for the customer and also yourself.
Definitely. And a lot came up there, and just in terms of knowing about somebody's tone and maybe what's going on with their company in the midst of the pandemic, what's going on with them personally. It feels like in this post-COVID world that we almost have more of an insight into somebody's day-to-day as we see their kids running around in the background, the dogs barking, and you get to connect with somebody on that level. It's really important to be mindful of those things and be listening for them. So really, really great points there. Specifically, when we're thinking about, the calls and the interactions that each of you are having with customers or prospects or stakeholders, what are some things that you are specifically thinking about and being mindful of before, during, and after that call? So how do you prepare for it? What are you thinking throughout it? And what things is it important for you to think about after that call? Whoever wants to jump in here.
Sure, yeah. I could go first. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Oh, sorry. Thanks. I'll be pretty quick with it. I think that there are 4 things that I think about in preparation, and maybe I'll leave up the other ones maybe during and after. But specifically, let's start with your mental space. And I think that one is what people most typically think of when they think about mindfulness and meditation. Like, how am I feeling? What are my emotions that are happening right now? What are the thoughts that are coming through my brain? Where are they coming from and where are they going? I think that one of the things that people might not necessarily think about as much with mindfulness is your physical space, your body. Like, are you hydrated? Are you feeling hungry? Are you uncomfortable? What's your posture like? Your physical space, as in your office, your surroundings, where you're taking this call, where you're having this interaction. Is your family around you? Is your pet? What's the weather like? Is there somebody at the door? Is there somebody in the other room? And then finally, your virtual space, which is, I think, that one of the things that people maybe think less about. What are you looking at on your screen as we're having these interactions in the screen? What are your windows set up like? What are your tabs set up like? Are you having your notifications on or off? Are things easily accessible to you if you need to them? The context of your communication with the customer, your emails, the context of your company's relationship with the customer. Do you have your CRM in front of you? I think all those things are things that you need to be mindful of. And one of the things I think we'll probably get to with Jay is that it's not necessarily about changing them or judging them or getting your pet out or getting your kids out or getting the notifications to go away. A lot of it is just being aware that they're there and happening and accepting them and kind of moving past them. That's kind of the core of mindfulness, is that being aware without judging. So that's kind of what I think about when I'm going before I'm having an interaction with anybody.
Matt, what about you? Matt O?
Yeah, it's really a lot about, in terms of balance. Balance is really, really important. Matt made a lot of really good points in terms of what does your current environment look like? What's your virtual setup look like? But also balancing your time throughout the day and throughout the week. So shutting off when you say you're going to shut off. Give your mind the ability to rest and relax and recuperate, and even do some self-reflection as well. But during a call, it's really a matter of, what does this person care about? Like, what's going to be valuable to them? What have they accomplished in the past? What are some of the objectives that they're working on right now? And to tone match as well. Like, people have so many different personalities. Some people are really energetic, and you have to talk really energetic. And sometimes you need to talk a little quieter and match their tone and be a bit more relaxed and low key. And As well as honest active listening. Active listening is so important right now to understand the full scope of what's happening throughout their day, their job, their company, and show them that you are listening and that you're not just trying to sell them something or have them sign a contract. Like, you're actually there to partner with them. And then once the call is over, go back, listen to that call, do some self-reflection, some self-coaching, but also do it with a manager or another lead in the company, or maybe get another perspective from someone else in a different company or a colleague, whatever the case might be. It's really important right now, once the call is over, to, of course, send your follow-ups, add that value post-call, but do as much self-reflection as you can once the call is over.
And you bring up a really good point there as to active listening. That last word that Chip mentioned, it's sometimes the most important one. Chip, what about you? What are the things that you're being mindful of before, during, and after, a call that you have with a customer?
Thanks for asking. I think Matt brought up a really great point of kind of the difference between the tactical stuff that you have to nail and the qualitative stuff that you also really want to nail. So first and foremost, it's being intentional about what information has been exchanged going up to this conversation. So I don't want to ask ever the same question that's ever been asked to this customer before. That's what we use Gong for, so you kind of have that infinite memory. And ideally, you actually listen to the last call before you show up to the next call. So at least you come feeling like you're prepared with the situation. From an internal qualitative perspective, it's all about state. Energy transfers. Whatever emotional state you're in, you're infecting other people all around you. If you've ever been around someone who's grumpy and angry, it doesn't feel good to be around them. That's because emotions are actually contagious. Neuroscience will tell you this. Matt studies neuroscience as well. So it's about your state. Are you in a state of curiosity and open-mindedness? Because if you're not, nobody's going to want to work with you. If you're just trying to get to the goal and hit your quota, that's going to be so obvious to the other person based on your subconscious, the things about your body that you can't control. So if you're not truly genuine and authentic, then you're not going to be doing the best job you could be. So for me, it's about showing up prepared, being transparent and authentic, which is where the meditation helps you get centered beforehand. And then afterwards, it's about executing 100% of everything that you said you would do, so that you're nailing the tactical execution up front, the present moment awareness in the conversation, and you're nailing it afterwards. And we use Gong as well to make sure that you never forget a follow-up, because it tracks all those for me. So yeah, it's like execution and presence, those two things.
Execution and presence. No, those are really good points, and I think leads directly into my next question, which is around, as you're executing on these calls, to make sure that you're, getting all the information that you might need out of the call, making sure that interaction is good for you. How do you make sure that you're also creating value for the prospect or customer that you're talking to? What does it mean to have a dialogue that creates that value, and what steps can an SDR, a salesperson, a sales manager, what steps can those folks take to make sure that that value is created in the dialogue? Matt Osit, maybe we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, sure. This is actually something that I just coached on this morning, so excited to talk about this. So when you're on a call with a customer, right, you try to figure out authority, need, budget, timeline, right? We stick to bands or whatever sales philosophy you have around qualifying and trying to find out pain. But the one thing that's often overlooked is the person you're on the phone with. It could even be an influencer. What do they care about? What are they struggling with? Forget about the business as a whole. That might not be important to them, but how can we provide value to them? Going back to Chip and mine's point, to active listening and asking really mindful questions that relate to them specifically, not general questions that are scripted. And just asking them, hey, what are some challenges you're facing today? Talk to me about that. And then feel free to mirror them, struggles, and see what they say. So it's really important just to relate the value back to that person you're speaking with, because then they could go ahead and champion your conversation or your product to the rest of the company, the rest of the decision makers and economic buyers.
Definitely. I know that's a strategy that I was coached on during my sales days, of being able to repeat that last word and just wait there to see what other information that they might be able to provide to you that's going to be make sure that you can give them the most value. Chip, what are your thoughts on creating that value in a conversation?
Thanks for asking, Autumn. Love the point, Matt, about finding the things that matter to them. Tony Robbins calls it leverage. Like, in order to sell, you need to create leverage. So you want to understand what's the pain and where do you want to get, and that gap is where people are hoping to find solutions. So finding that pain and that goal. And I think that for me, what it means to have a dialogue that creates value is to truly come in with an intention of being of service, so that you're legitimately there because you actually believe that this can be a solution that can bring value to someone. So it's really not about you. It's actually first and foremost about delivering value. And if you don't have that other person first kind of mind state, then I think that it comes off. And so I think that when I think about what does it actually mean to create, what does that value manifest in real world? It looks like growth. And what does growth look like? I think growth can be kind of one of three things. It could be the growth of a relationship. Like Matthew was saying, you're building rapport, you're bonding, they're feeling like you're hearing them. It could be the growth of an understanding of a new industry. Like at Gong, we're creating a new category. So we're constantly educating prospects and customers, and we actually have to help people grow their understanding of the way that sales can work. And then it's like the tangible, like, can you create value with someone's life, like with a direct, can you give them something that's actually they can point to and say that was of value as well? So can you actually give them takeaways? So those would be the kind of the three categories that I was thinking of.
Matt Klassen, you want to bring us home?
Yeah, absolutely. I fully agree with everything that Matthew and Chip have been saying. And I think that for me, when I think about like the heart of business, the heart of this conversation, and especially when it comes to discovery calls and initial sales calls, when it's early on in the relationship, you want to set the tone that this is it's kind of like consultative selling sort of strategy, but you want to set the tone that this is a creative problem solving kind of call. This is an interaction that's not about like whittling everything down to like the finest points. This is a conversation that should start off being expansionist. And what I mean by that is that you have to get their order of operations right. Like, there will be plenty of time later on in the relationship as you build it. Like Chip was saying, that sometimes the goal of the first call can just be to establish this relationship and grow it, not to close. But like I said, if you get the order of operations right, if you start with expansionist problem solving, and what I mean by that is there are two types of creative problem solving, reductionist and expansionist. And when we're thinking about expansionist, it's like getting away from this assumption that you know the whole of the problem, that you identify the parts as they are, not kind of the parts as you think they should be. And it could be very chaotic. It could look like a brainstorm session. It could look like, just throwing out ideas. In our at Front, all of our initial discovery calls start with something like, in an ideal universe, what would your customer communication solution look like? If there were no limitations, if anything was possible, what would it look like to you? Let's just start from there. Like, in further subsequent calls or later on in the call, if it's a long one, you could start to get down to this, defining the problem, breaking it down into sub problems, finding solutions for each sub problem, finding an overall solution that integrates all of the sub solutions into like the overall whole. Like, that's stuff for later though. That's kind of stuff, if you start that way, you're going to always end up in a smaller box than you could be if you started with expansionist thinking. And that's like a very clear differentiation in terms of neuroscience when you're looking at people solving problems, especially people solving problems as a group. And so for me, discovery calls early on in the relationship, like, always ask, what would it look like in an ideal world? Let's start with no limitations, and then we'll get to those limitations later on down the road. But you got to start with expansionist thinking first.
I think that's a really good point. Keep it broad initially, and then narrow it down as the conversation moves along.
Yeah, and I'll build on that. As far as like tactically, how do you keep it broad? It's actually very simple, and it's open-ended questions. So open-ended questions are the key to getting information, and I'm sure everybody listening on this call, understands that. But yes/no questions are the definition of reductionist thinking, and open-ended questions are the example of open-ended question asking. And Matt, it's so funny about that question that you used. In an ideal world, what would this look like? That's actually a question that my team asks on every discovery call. It's 6 months from now, let's put ourselves in the best possible scenario. this has gone incredibly well, maybe even putting our product aside for a second. Tell me about what that place looks like, and what did you actually focus on the last 6 months to actually open up that broad-minded discussion as well.
Definitely. And Matt, I really like the point that you made specifically about like the order of operations, because it makes me remember that no two interactions are necessarily exactly the same. And in some situations, someone might come to you with their very specific problem and I need this problem solved. And in other situations, you do want to build that rapport, get to know the person a little better, start to, from the place that they want to start. And I think that's an incredible point, and something that mindfulness can help you be prepared for that shift, that you might not know which kind of conversation you're having until the moment that you get on the call with somebody. So I thought that was a great point there. Folks, if you're listening right now, you can feel free to ask any questions that might be arising for you all. Just to give you a heads up about how this is going to go, we've got about 5 more minutes of panel discussion here, and then we're going to take you over to Jay and Sofia, who are going to be talking through some specific mindfulness and meditation tips, actually bring you through meditation practice. But if you have any questions for our panelists here, feel free to put them into the event chat. But guys, just as we're wrapping up here, if there's one thing or one tip that you could provide to maybe the salespeople or whoever is on this call today to make themselves, more present in the conversations that they're having from the day to day, and this goes for customer interactions, obviously, as well as internal interactions that you're having with the people you work with every day. What one tip can you guys think of that can help folks become more present or maintain that presence? Chip, why don't we start with you this time? But feel free to take some time to think about it if you need to.
Yeah, let me pause on that for a second.
Yeah.
I think for me, I would say before you jump into a call, try and save yourself a few minutes to really settle down after a call, and give yourself a little bit of breathing room, because when you push it up back to back to back to back, you're just like you're burning the car on maximum energy, and you're burning yourself out. So if you can actually just be intentional about the way that you end your meetings, so that you can have 5 minutes beforehand, you can lie down, you can lay on the couch, you can do some deep breathing. Creating that space for yourself to decompress is like the equivalent of an athlete who plays tennis in between sets. You rest in between, you get ready to recover, so then you can go nail one after the other, as opposed to a gradual, steady decline throughout the course of the day. So create rest opportunities for yourself.
It's a great tip. Matt Osit, what about you? What's a tip that you provide?
Be your own best friend. And so what I mean by that is always have your mental health top of mind. Take deep breaths, take breaks like Chip mentioned. But most importantly, it's kind of hard to ignore distractions right now. Work remote, there are so many different distractions, but find a way to ignore them and recognize your wins throughout the day and learn from your faults. Both are equally as important. And if you're being your own best friend, then you'll learn so much from it.
That's a great point. Matt Klassen, what's your tip takeaway?
Yeah, I think pretty simply mix things up. Whatever you can do to change up your sort of routine habits has a measurable result in your adaptability and creativity. It can be, if we were driving to work, I would say change your commute. Since as we are, I would say find a different place to take a call, find a different habit. Shake up your routine. I think there's numerous studies. In fact, there's one pretty famous one about subway travel in London. In the tube is what they call metro. And there was a strike in 2014, and they were able to track behavior of thousands of people, millions of people as they moved through the subway. And they found that a huge percentage of people were taking suboptimal routes. They were wasting a lot of time, but you couldn't pay them to change up their route because they were sure that they had it figured out. But the strike comes in, closes down a number of lines, and they have to take a new way to work. And a significant percentage of people never went back to their old way of traveling because they found a faster way, a better way. And so things like mixing up your path, your frameworks, your typical questions, trying new things, it'll have a better effect on you, even if it doesn't have a better effect on the outcome. And you never know, it might have a better effect on the outcome.
Definitely. great tips all around. Creating breaks for yourself throughout the day, making sure to be your own best friend, and, of course, changing up your routine, not doing the same exact thing every day, and to make sure you can maintain that creativity and maybe discover something new and better. All incredible tips and things that I'll definitely be taking personally, and hopefully all of you on this call can also take that into your daily workday and improve upon the mindfulness that you're taking into each and every workday. So with that, it's 1:30 now. I see that we did have one question specifically about open-ended questions from Carla. Carla, you can, I believe that Chip's LinkedIn is on the landing page that you used to sign up. So feel free to reach out to him directly. I'm sure he'll have some thoughts on creating better open-ended questions. But Matt, and Chip, thank you all so much for joining. This has been a really great discussion. I think we came to a lot of really cool conclusions, and hopefully all of you watching got a lot out of it as well. Thank you, guys.
Awesome. Thank you so much,
Autumn.
Autumn.
It's been wonderful connecting with you.
Really appreciate it.
Of course. So as the panelists take their leave here, we're actually going to be transitioning into the mindfulness portion of this sales meditation event. The reason that you guys are all here to get a little bit of mindfulness right here in your day today. We'll actually put it into practice. And so with that, I'm going to be passing it over to Jay here, who I'll allow to introduce himself and kick off.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. Just want to make sure that you can hear me, Autumn, and that we're all still good. But it seems like, yes, we are.
We are good.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Thank you, guys, for allowing me to come in here and crash your sales session. To be fair, I'm a sales guy myself. Been around the sales world for a long time, about 15 plus years, and have been a mindful sales executive that entire time. Had the real pleasure of learning about and meeting the team from Journey about 2 years ago, and was impressed with not only the fact that this was something that happens inside organizations, but that it had been going on for some time. Matt mentioned Headspace. There's a lot of different ways that companies have been engaging and learning to helping their employees to learn how to meditate and be a little more mindful. But sales is a really unique thing because it's an incredibly high stress role. And I will say, as a sales leader who manages teams and who deals with stress and clients on a regular basis, there's a lot of pressure on you. And the hardest thing about, I think, being in sales for me is not letting everything else come in and impact the one call that I'm on right now, or the one conversation that I'm having right now. And so that's really how I use mindfulness and how I use meditation. So what I've got today for you guys is something that's really cool. One of our teachers has actually put together a special presentation for us. Her name is Sofia Adler. She is a teacher here in New York. And like myself and all of you crazy people, she previously worked in media. She was actually a media buyer in sales, and so she understands the pressure. So one of the things that I'm really excited to have her do today is really teach us a little bit more about the practice of mindfulness in sales. So with that in mind, I'm going to share a video for you guys to watch, and I think it's going to be a really amazing time. So hang on one second, and we'll get this thing kicked off.
And I'm a big believer that the way that we connect with others is that we make them feel seen and we make them feel heard. The way to do that is to be present with them, to be fully and completely with them. And that's where mindfulness can come in. Because as I'm sure you've heard by now, or maybe even knew before, mindfulness is the practice of being in the present moment, of observing what's happening around you, but doing so without judgment. It's not an opportunity to be critical or judgmental or let, our inner dialogue take over, but to really just be in the moment. And the way that we do that, and what I want to talk about today before we get started, is this idea of mindful communication, which consists of two parts, at least for our conversation today. It consists of mindful listening and then mindful speaking. And mindful listening is when we just listen, when our only job is to listen, when we don't half hear the person because we're thinking about what we want to say next or what we had planned to say but got interrupted, but really just being with the person, listening without agenda. Kind of takes the edge off a little bit. You don't have to know what to say. You can just listen. And then mindful speaking is being aware of the words that you're using that are coming out of your mouth, being aware of when maybe you're just speaking to fill silences or pauses or gaps in conversation, noticing maybe when you're saying more than you need to say. Can you practice mindful speaking and repeat the things that you've heard the person that you're talking to, the potential client, say to you, so that you hit on their dreams, their desires, their pain points? That's really how mindfulness can help us. As I said at the beginning, in every single capacity, any type of conversation, be more present, be more connected, and make people feel like we really see them, we really know them, we understand them. And you can apply this in your calls before, during, and after. So in just a minute, we will meditate together, and that will be kind of a glimpse of the pre-work, so to speak. But the way that I would recommend practicing mindful listening, practicing mindfulness, generally speaking, for your calls is to, before the call, get present. Take a look around the room. What do you see? Where are you in space? It sounds silly, but we often overlook what's going on in our surroundings. Feel your feet on the floor. Feel your seat in your chair, on your bed, on your couch, wherever you are. Let your shoulders drop down away from the ears. And just notice where you are in physical space. And then start to feel your breath in the body. Maybe you can place your attention on the feeling of the belly and chest expanding, or the air in the nostrils. And then maybe at this point you close your eyes. You really settle your attention on the breath. Noticing, remembering the breath, because the breath is what keeps us present. The breath is always happening. We're always breathing, hopefully. When we can't breathe in the future, we can't breathe in the past. And then during the call, when you find that your mind has wandered, totally normal, happens to all of us, or all of a sudden you're focused on what you're going to say next, just notice it and draw your attention back to your breath for a second. Use the breath to come back into the moment, and then listen to the person that you're talking to, hearing what they're saying. The way that mindful speaking can come in during that is to maybe, as I said earlier, repeat what they're reflecting back to you, and then use that at the end of the call. Express gratitude for their time, reflect back what you heard that they really need, what they're hoping for, and then, of course, how you can help, how you can be there. A framework for any conversation, but especially this kind of conversation. And so now we are going to meditate together. We're going to practice this whole mindfulness thing. And this can be something you do before the call, is practice for coming back to the breath during the call when you find yourself distracted. And like I recommended for the end of the call, we'll end with a gratitude here as well. So at Journey, we play music in the background when we meditate. I'm going to get that set up now. And while I do that, I invite you to get comfortable. Setting up your seat, if you are in a chair, uncrossing the ankles, uncrossing the knees, so you can feel the weight of the feet on the floor. And sit up tall. The spine is long, but you're not seated in a way that's rigid or tense. Finding a posture that allows you to feel both alert and awake, but also comfortable and at ease. Hands rest gently on the tops of the thighs. Decide if you'd like to have the eyes open or closed for practice, whatever makes you more comfortable. If the eyes are open, think hazy, unfocused gaze down the tip of the nose. 3 to 6 feet out in front of you. Know that there's no wrong way to do this or meditate. All you need to do is follow my instruction. And when the mind wanders, come back. So let's begin by setting an intention for the why behind your practice, a dedication for this meditation. No need to overthink it, just the first thing that comes to mind. Inhale. Intention. Exhale. Breathe in. Intention. Breathe out. Inhale. Intention. Exhale. And now bring your attention to the body, beginning at the soles of the feet, moving past the ankles, gliding up the shin bones, swirling the kneecap, continuing up along the thighs to the hips, soft, unclenched belly, wide collarbones, proud, open chest. Shoulders glide down the back, away from the ears, and the upper arm bones just hang heavy alongside the body. The spine is long and tall. Its length continues up the back of the neck so that the crown of the head can reach ever so slightly higher towards the sky, facilitated by a tiny tuck of the chin. Softening all of the muscles in your face. Relax the forehead. Let the eyebrows drop. Slack jaw. Do one last scan of the body and notice if there's anywhere you're still holding tension and see if you can release it. Or allow it to soften ever so slightly. And now let your attention settle onto the breath. More specifically, the feeling of the breath as it moves through the body. This is different than noticing the breath or thinking inhale, exhale. I'm asking you to focus your attention on what it feels like to breathe. This emphasis on feeling is what allows you to just drop into the body. Let the body do its thing. You know how to breathe. And let your mind take a well-deserved rest. You'll come to notice, however, if you haven't already, that your mind's going to wander. Your mind's going to think. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not bad at this. The mind is meant to think. Some thoughts won't even distract you. You'll notice that they just kind of come up while you're still connected to the feeling of the breath, and those thoughts you can just leave alone. But when you do find yourself distracted, completely down the rabbit hole, lost in thought, simply notice that you're thinking. Let the thought go. And return your attention to the breath. Drop back into the body and begin again. Now we'll sit together. When you notice that the mind has wandered, all you need to do is come back to the breath. Feel your feet on the floor. Unclench the belly, let the shoulders drop. Sit up tall. And begin again. Recalling the intention that you set at the start of our practice together, bringing it to the front of your mind. Inhale. Intention. Exhale. Breathe in. Intention. Breathe out. Inhale. Intention. Exhale. Taking a moment of gratitude for this practice, for yourself, and for your breath. We'll close with a final inhale and exhale together, but before we do, just deep sigh out the mouth, exhale all of the stale air. Breathe in. And breathe out. As you're ready, slowly, gently start to introduce movement back into the body. Wiggle fingers and toes. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. Nod the head yes, no. Flutter the eyes open. Please know that there's no right or wrong way that you're supposed to feel right now, and there's no right or wrong way that that was supposed to go. Wherever you are is where you are. And again, as a takeaway, coming back to this idea of using the breath to stay present with people, to make them feel seen and heard, to let listening be the only thing that you need to do, which in turn will help you hear better and mindfully speak. Have richer conversations, more connected conversation. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was an absolute pleasure to practice with you, and I hope to see you soon. Be well.
My thanks to all of you for joining us as well. And we are just under the wire at 3 o'clock, so it was meant to be, as they say. So thank you all very much. And Autumn, thanks very much for allowing us to come in and host today.
Of course, thank you, Jay. Please give our thanks to Sofia. That was a fantastic practice. Everyone, the speakers' LinkedIn's are in the chat. Again, if you're interested in connecting with anyone who spoke today, you'll be able to find all that information on the landing page that you signed up on. But thank you all again so much for joining. We hope you enjoyed it. We really do welcome your feedback. Feel free to reach out to myself directly or anyone with any feedback that you have for our event, and go forth and have mindful conversations.